The Galactic Science Index lists human discoveries that benefited all species equally. The Great Hall on Nexus Prime had never held so many different species at once. Crystalline walls stretched up toward a ceiling that seemed to touch the stars themselves. Every seat was filled. Every gallery was packed. The Galactic Council's Millennial Scientific Achievement Summit only happened once every 1,000 years, and this one was special. Today, the first Galactic Science Index would be revealed to everyone. Ambassador Wei sat in the human delegation section, feeling small. Around her were beings that had crossed the stars when humans still lived in caves. The Draconians towered 3 meters tall, their scales catching the light like precious gems. They floated in their containment spheres, bodies of living energy that hurt to look at directly. The archivists stood like ancient trees, their bark-like skin marked with symbols older than human writing. There were hundreds more, species whose names had only begun to learn. She had been an ambassador for Earth for just 5 years. Humanity had joined the galactic community only 2 centuries ago, which was nothing in galactic terms. Most species measured their membership in tens of thousands of years. The Draconians had been part of the Council for 50,000 years. The claim they had kept records for over 1,000,000 was here mostly as a formality, to represent humanity's small contribution to the great library of galactic knowledge. The Archon moved to the center of the hall. Its voice resonated through translation devices that every species wore or had implanted. Welcome, friends of the Council. For 1,000 years we have debated how to measure the true value of scientific discovery. Is it the elegance of the mathematics, the difficulty of the achievement, the advancement of understanding? The Archon paused. We believe it is none of these things. True value lies in benefit, in lives improved, in suffering reduced, in help given to all, not just to some. The hall murmured with approval. This was why everyone had come. The Galactic Science Index would rank every major discovery in recorded history by how much it had helped everyone equally. The algorithm was complex, accounting for lives saved, quality of life improved, and whether a discovery could be used by all species regardless of their biology or technology level. The index has been calculated, the Archon said. Let us begin with the greatest achievements of our civilization. Holographic displays lit up throughout the hall. Everyone leaned forward, expected to see the legendary discoveries she had read about in school. The wormhole equations that made faster-than-light travel possible. The medical scanner that could diagnose any illness. The antimatter containment field that powered modern civilization. The first entry appeared, blinked. The second entry followed, then the third. By the 10th entry, the hall had gone completely silent. By the 20th, shocked whispers filled the air. By the 50th, chaos erupted. 47 of the top 50 discoveries were credited to humanity. Stared at the display, certain there had been a mistake. The top entry was the reset protocol, a simple procedure for quantum computers that her colleague Dr. Sarah, no relation, had published 30 years ago. Second was the sympathetic cultivation method, a farming technique developed by an agricultural collective in India. Third was the bridging algorithm for translation systems. Fourth was the universal water purification standard. Fifth was the adaptive medical diagnostic framework. All human, all developed in just the last 200 years. The delegate's voice cut through the noise, translated as sharp and cold. This is impossible. There has been an error in the calculations. The Draconian ambassador stood, wings spreading wide. They have made a grave mistake, or worse, they show favoritism to the newcomers. Felt hundreds of eyes turn toward the human section. Her hands started to shake. This couldn't be right. Humanity had barely figured out nuclear fusion when the galactic community found Earth. They were students, not teachers. They learned from the ancient species, not the other way around. The Archon raised its branch-like arms. The calculations have been 17 times. The algorithm is sound. The data is correct. Then the algorithm is flawed. A scientist's tentacles writhed in agitation. My people have contributed to galactic science for 30,000 years. We created the bioregeneration matrix that eliminated disease across 50 star systems. How can simple human procedures rank higher? Because they work for everyone, a new voice said. Turned to see and standing, its four eyes calm and thoughtful. They were known as philosophers and deep thinkers. I have studied the reset protocol. It is elegant in its simplicity. It requires no special equipment. It can be performed by any technician. It works on quantum systems from any civilization. The bioregeneration matrix is brilliant, but it only works on carbon-based neural structures similar to biology. The delegate's skin flushed dark purple, a sign of anger in their species. Our discovery saves millions of lives. And the reset protocol saves trillions of computational cycles across every species, the replied gently. It prevents cascade failures that would destroy data, end research, crash life support systems. It benefits silicon-based species, energy beings, and carbon-based life equally. This is what the index measures. The delegate spun in its containment sphere. I demand an independent investigation. This result damages the credibility of the Council and insults species who have contributed for. Other voices joined in. They felt their medical achievements had been overlooked. They claimed their energy research deserved higher ranking. The Crystalline Collective suggested the entire index should be recalculated with different parameters. Within minutes, delegations were shouting over each other. The Draconian ambassador called the results an insult to ancient wisdom. A hive mind representative suggested humanity had somehow corrupted the data. Wanted to disappear. She caught the eye of Dr. Earth's chief scientist for the delegation. He looked as shocked as she felt. Neither of them had expected this. No human had expected this. The Archon's voice boomed across the hall, cutting through the noise. There will be an investigation. We propose a joint commission to review each entry independently. The commission will consist of the, and the collective, three species known for absolute objectivity. The Archon paused. But let the record show that they stand by the index. We do not make errors in record-keeping. We have not for 1,000,000 years. The session dissolved into smaller arguments. Several delegations walked out. The Draconians left as a group, their ambassador declaring they would not return until this farce is corrected. Watch them go, feeling a mixture of pride and terror. If the index was correct, it would change everything about how the galaxy saw humanity. If it was wrong, humanity would be humiliated, possibly expelled from the council. As the hall emptied, Doctor moved to sit beside. He was old-haired and had spent his entire life studying alien science. "Did you know about this?" asked him. "No," said quietly, "but I'm starting to understand it." He pulled up a data pad and showed her the list again. "Look at the pattern. Every one of these human discoveries has something in common. They're all simple. They all use basic principles. They can all be built or performed with common materials. And they all work regardless of what kind of species you are or what technology you have." Studied the list. The reset protocol was just a sequence of steps. The sympathetic cultivation method was basically a way to analyze soil chemistry and match it with plants. The bridging algorithm used basic mathematics that any computer could handle. None of them were flashy or impressive in the way that wormhole generators or antimatter containment were impressive. "We didn't set out to help everyone," continued. "We just had to make things that worked with what we had. Earth is a harsh world compared to most garden planets. We had limited resources. We had hundreds of different cultures that needed to share ideas. So we learned to make things simple, cheap, and universal." He smiled sadly. "We thought we were just bad at making elegant solutions. Turns out, we were making the right kind of solutions all along." "Will the other species accept that?" asked. Looked at the empty hall. "That's what scares me. We've accidentally proven that 200 years of human desperation is worth more than 50,000 years of draconian excellence. That's not something proud species want to hear." Thought about home, about Earth, with its violent weather and dangerous animals and 1,000 different languages. About humanity, always struggling, always improvising, always making do with less than what they needed. She had spent her whole career feeling inferior to the ancient species of the galaxy, certain that humans had nothing special to offer. Maybe being nothing special was the most special thing about them. The investigation would take months. Until then, humanity was under a spotlight it had never wanted. Looked at the list of discoveries one more time. 47 different ways humanity had helped the galaxy without even knowing it. 47 accidental gifts from a desperate species that learned to make things work for everyone because they had no other choice. She saved the list and stood up. There was work to do. If the index was right, the galaxy was about to learn something new from the youngest species in the Council. And if the index was wrong, humanity would face humiliation on a galactic scale. Either way, everything was about to change. The investigation took 6 months, not the 3 originally planned. The commission worked in a sealed facility on Prime, away from political pressure and media attention. Ambassador received only brief updates. The AN were examining each of the top 50 discoveries in detail, testing them across different species, different technologies, different environments. Meanwhile, the galaxy argued. Scientific journals published hundreds of papers debating the index methodology. News networks ran endless debates. Some species supported humanity, mostly younger civilizations who felt the ancient species had dominated galactic science for too long. Others dismissed the entire index as flawed from the start. The Draconians published their own ranking system that, suspiciously, placed Draconian discoveries at the top. Spent those months doing something she had never done before. She started reading human scientific papers, not the alien ones. She visited human research stations and talked to scientists who had never expected their work to matter beyond their own labs. She spoke with Dr. Sarah, the quantum physicist who had developed the reset protocol. "I just got frustrated," Dr. Sarah explained. They sat in a small on Luna station, looking out at Earth hanging in the black sky. Quantum computers kept crashing because of cascade failures. They had a solution, but it required equipment that cost 50 million credits and took up an entire room. I was working in a lab that barely had funding for basic tools. So I started thinking, what if the computer could fix itself? What if there was a way to reset the quantum state, using just the system's own architecture? "And you figured it out," said. Sarah shrugged. "It took 3 years and it's not perfect. It's more like a band-aid than real surgery, but it works. You just follow the steps and the system stabilizes. Anyone can do it." That phrase kept coming up. Anyone can do it. Heard it from the agricultural scientists who developed sympathetic cultivation. She heard it from the linguists who created the bridging algorithm. She heard it from every human researcher whose work had ended up on the index. None of them thought they were doing anything special. They were just solving problems with whatever tools they had available. The day the commission's report was released was in her apartment on Nexus Prime. She watched the press conference on her wall screen, heart pounding. The archivist who led the commission stood before a room packed with journalists from every major species. "The commission has completed its investigation," the archivist said. "We have examined all 50 entries at the top of the Galactic Science Index. We have tested them across 47 different species and environments. We have compared them to alternatives. We have analyzed their impact over the past 2 centuries. The archivist paused. "The index is correct." The room exploded with questions. The archivist waited for silence. Furthermore, the commission has identified why humanity dominates the index, and the answer may be uncomfortable for many to hear. Leaned forward, this was it. "Human discoveries share unique characteristics," the archivist continued. "They are low cost to implement. They require minimal specialized equipment. They work across radically different biologies and environmental conditions. Most importantly, they are freely shared with detailed, accessible documentation that allows any species to understand and replicate them." The archivist brought up a holographic display comparing two medical techniques. Consider the Universal Medical Scanner, ranked at position 63. It is a brilliant piece of technology, capable of diagnosing any known illness in seconds. However, it requires manufactured components, costs 8 million credits per unit, and needs specialized training to operate. The display shifted. Compare this to the Adaptive Medical Diagnostic Framework developed by Dr. James of Earth, ranked at position 5. It is not a device but a methodology. It provides a series of simple tests and observations that can be performed with basic medical equipment available to any civilization. It works on species that have never encountered. It costs almost nothing to implement. It can be taught to any medical student in a week. The scanner is more advanced, and Commissioner added, standing to join the presentation. It is more accurate, more elegant, more sophisticated, but the Adaptive Medical Diagnostic Framework has been used to diagnose 300 trillion patients across 800 species. The scanner has been used on 30 billion patients of 40 species who could afford it. The archivist nodded. This pattern repeats across all human discoveries in the top 50. The Commission has concluded that humanity possesses an unusual approach to problem solving, likely born from specific environmental and historical factors. Watched as the archivist explained what the Commission had learned. Earth was what galactic scientists called a death world, a planet with extreme environmental variation, dangerous wildlife, and relatively unstable climate. Most spacefaring species evolved on gentler worlds with more stable conditions. Earth forced humans to become adaptable, to solve problems with limited resources, to create solutions that worked in many different situations. Additionally, the Commissioner said, humanity reached space-age technology while still divided into competing nation-states and cultures. This forced them to develop science that could be understood and replicated by groups with different knowledge bases, different technology levels, and different resources. A discovery made in one human nation had to be simple enough and well documented enough that another nation could verify and use it. The representative, speaking through a translation unit, added its observation. Most species reach the stars as unified civilizations with standardized technology and shared knowledge bases. They then collaborate primarily with species similar to themselves. Draconians work well with other reptilian species. They collaborate easily with other energy-based life. Over millions of years, galactic science has become increasingly specialized and increasingly dependent on specific conditions. Humanity arrived late, the archivist said. They had no choice but to learn from everyone, and because they learned from everyone, they created solutions that work for everyone. The reset protocol functions on energy computers, processors, and draconian quantum matrices equally well. The sympathetic cultivation method works on toxic worlds, paradise planets, and space stations. The bridging algorithm translates between species that communicate with sound, light, chemicals, quantum entanglement, and temporal displacement. The archivist paused. The Commission's final conclusion is this. The Galactic Science Index reveals a fundamental flaw in how advanced civilizations have practiced science. We have optimized for elegance and sophistication when we should have optimized for universality and accessibility. Humanity, through necessity rather than design, learned to do what the rest of us forgot. Create knowledge that helps everyone, not just those like ourselves. Sat back, stunned. The Commission wasn't just validating the index. They were saying that humanity's approach was better, that 200 years of human struggle had taught them something the ancient species had forgotten. The press conference continued for hours. Reporters asked about specific discoveries. Scientists questioned the methodology. Some accepted the findings immediately. Others, particularly from older civilizations, pushed back hard, but the Commission stood firm. The data was clear. The testing was thorough. The conclusion was unavoidable. That evening received a message from the Draconian ambassador. She almost deleted it, expecting anger or dismissal. Instead, she found an invitation. The Draconians wanted to meet with the human delegation privately. Arrived at the Draconian embassy with Doctor and 3 other human scientists, she expected confrontation. Instead, the Draconian ambassador bowed deeply, wings spread in a gesture of respect. "We owe humanity an apology," the ambassador said. "When the index was first revealed, we reacted with pride rather than wisdom. We have spent the last 6 months reviewing our own contributions to galactic science." The ambassador gestured to displays showing Draconian discoveries. "Our empire has made 12,000 medical breakthroughs over 50,000 years. They have saved billions of lives. We are proud of this." But, the ambassador continued, voice heavy, "the Commission's investigation made us examine something we had never considered. Who were we saving? Almost all of our medical techniques require Draconian physiology. They need Draconian equipment, built to Draconian specifications, operated by Draconian-trained physicians. We have saved billions of Draconians, and perhaps 100 million members of the 17 species with similar biology. We never thought to ask if our medicine could help the saw genuine pain in the ambassador's eyes. "Your species developed 47 major discoveries in 200 years, 47 different ways to help everyone. We developed 12,000 discoveries in 50,000 years, and almost all of them help only ourselves and our closest allies. This is not the achievement we believed it to be." Doctor spoke carefully. "Your discoveries are still incredible. The Draconian regeneration technique is more advanced than anything humans could create." "Advanced and useless to most of the galaxy," the ambassador replied. "This is what shames us. We had the knowledge, the resources, the time to create truly universal solutions. Instead, we created brilliant solutions only for ourselves." The ambassador looked at each human in turn. "We wish to propose a collaboration. Help us redesign our medical knowledge to be accessible to all species. Teach us how you think about problems. In return, we offer our resources and our expertise." It was the first of many such meetings. Over the following weeks, delegations from dozens of species approached humanity with similar requests. The wanted help making their wormhole technology cheaper and more accessible. They asked for assistance in redesigning their scanners. The scientists proposed a joint project to adapt their bioregeneration techniques using human universal design principles. Not everyone was happy. Some species still insisted the index was flawed and humanity's prominence was temporary. A few, mostly mid-tier civilizations, felt threatened by humanity's sudden importance. But slowly, grudgingly, the galaxy began to accept what the index revealed. Found herself in a strange new role. Instead of learning from ancient species as she had expected to spend her career doing, she was now teaching them. She led workshops on universal design principles. She explained how human scientists documented their work. She showed them how to think about solutions that worked across different biologies and technologies. The turning point came when met with a researcher named Luminescent Current, who was trying to adapt their wormhole equations. They had always generated wormholes using massive structures that manipulated space-time through energy patterns only their species could produce and control. "The problem," Luminescent Current explained, its translated voice frustrated, "is that our method is perfect. It creates the most stable wormholes possible. How do we make it work for others without losing that perfection?" Thought about Dr. Sarah and the Reset Protocol, about the agricultural scientists who created sympathetic cultivation, about every human discovery that had made the index. "What if," said slowly, "you stopped trying to maintain perfection? What if you aimed for good enough?" This energy form flickered with confusion. Good enough. "The Reset Protocol isn't perfect," explained. "It doesn't fix quantum computers as elegantly as the solution, but it's simple enough that anyone can do it with basic equipment. The sympathetic cultivation method doesn't optimize crop yields as well as specialized agricultural systems, but it works on any planet with any crops." She pulled up the wormhole equations. What if you designed a wormhole generator that was less stable, less efficient, but could be built and operated by any species? Luminescent current was quiet for a long moment. That would be scientifically inferior to what we have achieved. But it would help more people, said. That's what the index measures, not perfection, impact. 3 months later, Luminescent Current and its team published new wormhole equations. They weren't as elegant as the original method. The wormholes they produced were less stable and required more energy, but they could be generated using portable equipment that any species could build. The cost dropped from 5 billion credits to 50 million. Within a year, small trading companies were using the new method to open routes to remote systems that couldn't afford the old technology. Watched news reports of the first colony ship using the new wormhole system. They had been trapped in their home system for 3,000 years because they couldn't interface with wormhole generators. Now they were expanding to the stars, using technology that combined brilliance with human practicality. Doctor found in her office late one night. She was reviewing proposals for collaborative research projects. There were hundreds of them now, all following the same pattern: ancient species with advanced knowledge partnering with human scientists to make that knowledge universal. The council wants to meet tomorrow, said. They're voting on something big. The next morning stood in the Great Hall again. It looked different now. Where there had been resentment and anger 6 months ago, she now saw curiosity and hope. The draconian ambassador nodded to her respectfully. Luminescent current flickered a greeting. Even the scientists who had been so angry at first now seemed thoughtful rather than hostile. The Archon addressed the assembly. The Galactic Science Index has revealed truths we did not wish to see. For millions of years, we have practiced science for its own sake, for advancement, for prestige. We created wonders, but we created them for ourselves and those like us. The index shows us that true scientific achievement is measured not by sophistication, but by how many lives are improved. The Archon gestured too. Humanity has taught us this lesson not through words but through example. Every human discovery in the top 50 of the index shares the same quality. It helps everyone, equally, regardless of biology, technology, or resources. This is not because humans are more intelligent or more advanced. It is because they learned, through hardship and necessity, to create science that transcends the limitations of any single species. Therefore, the Archon continued, the Galactic Council proposes the establishment of the Universal Science Initiative, to be led jointly by the Archives and the Human Delegation. The initiative's purpose is to review all major discoveries in the galactic database, and where possible, adapt them for universal accessibility. We will combine the ancient knowledge of elder species with humanity's approach to universal design. The vote was overwhelming. Only 3 species abstained, and none voted against. Felt tears in her eyes as the hall erupted in approval. She thought about Earth, about the harsh world that had forced humanity to be practical and adaptable, about the thousands of human scientists who had created simple, universal solutions because they had no other choice. As the session ended, the draconian ambassador approached. I have been thinking about something you said in our first meeting. You seemed surprised that human discoveries ranked so highly. You said humanity had nothing special to offer the galaxy. Nodded, that's what I believed. And now, the ambassador asked. Looked around the hall, at species from across the galaxy working together in ways they never had before, at researchers sharing ideas and adapting ancient knowledge for universal use, at a civilization that was finally learning to create science for everyone, not just for some. Now, said, I think maybe being nothing special is the most special thing we could be. We're not the species. We're not the most advanced. We're not the oldest or the strongest or the most sophisticated. We're just practical. We're just desperate enough to make things that work for everyone because we never had the luxury of making things that only worked for us. The ambassador spread its wings in agreement. The galaxy needed a species like yours. We had become too confident in our ancient wisdom. We had forgotten that the best science is not the most elegant science. It is the science that helps the most people. The ambassador bowed again. Thank you for reminding us of this. Over the following decades, the Universal Science Initiative transformed galactic civilization. The medical scanner, once requiring 8 million credits and specialized training, was redesigned with human principles and became available for 4,000 credits with minimal training. The antimatter containment, previously requiring megastructures, was adapted to work with portable generators. The crystalline collective's computational advances were, and made accessible to species without crystalline neural structures. The index was recalculated every 10 years. By the third calculation, the top 500 discoveries were all collaborative efforts between humans and elder species. Ancient brilliance combined with human universality created solutions that neither could have achieved alone. 50 years after the first index was published, attended her last scientific achievement summit before retirement. She was old now, haired like Doctor had been when this all started. The hall was filled with young researchers from every species, many of them trained in the principles of universal design that humanity had introduced. The new index was revealed. Smiled as she saw the top entry, a joint medical breakthrough between draconian regeneration specialists and human universal design engineers. It was a technique that could heal traumatic injuries across all known species, using equipment that any hospital could afford. The second entry was a human collaboration on quantum communication that made instant messaging across the galaxy available to everyone, not just governments and corporations. The Archon, younger than the one had first met but just as dignified, addressed the assembly. 50 years ago, the first Galactic Science Index shocked us by revealing how little our ancient wisdom had helped all species equally. Today's index shows how far we have come. The top 1,000 discoveries are all collaborations, combining the depth of ancient knowledge with the breadth of universal applicability. The Archon gestured to a memorial display honoring scientists who had passed. Doctor's face was there, along with thousands of others from dozens of species. We honor those who taught us that science without universal benefit is merely knowledge. Science that helps everyone equally is wisdom. Thought about the journey, about humanity arriving late to the galactic community and accidentally revolutionizing how the galaxy approached knowledge. About ancient species learning humility and young species learning confidence. About a harsh planet called Earth that had, through the struggles it forced on its children, given the galaxy an unexpected gift. After the ceremony, a young human scientist approached. She was barely 25, excited and nervous. Ambassador, I'm Dr. Sarah. I'm working on adapting the temporal displacement theory for universal use. It's really hard because temporal mechanics are so species-specific, but I think if we apply the simplification principles from the reset protocol. Smiled and stopped her, show me what you have. They spent the next hour going over equations and designs. Doctor's approach was classic human. Take something incredibly complex and break it down into simple, universal components that anyone could understand and use. It would work. It might take years, but it would work. As walked home that evening, she passed by a memorial that had been erected in the central plaza. It listed the names of all the human scientists whose discoveries had appeared on the first index. Dr. Sarah's name was at the top. Below it were agricultural scientists, linguists, medical researchers, computer engineers. None of them had set out to change the galaxy. They had just been solving problems with whatever tools they had. That was humanity's gift. Not brilliance or advancement or sophistication. Just the practical wisdom that came from living on a world that forced them to make things work for everyone, because they never had enough to make things work for just themselves. The galaxy had learned that lesson. It had taken 50 years, but ancient species had finally understood what their youngest members had known all along. the best science wasn't perfect science. It was science that helped everyone, equally. It was knowledge made universal through necessity and shared freely because that was the only way to make sure it reached everyone who needed it. Looked up at the stars, visible through Nexus Prime's crystal dome. Somewhere out there was Earth, the harsh world that had taught humanity to be practical instead of perfect. The death world that had, paradoxically, taught its children how to create life-saving science for everyone. Maybe that was the real meaning of the index. Maybe the galaxy didn't need more brilliant discoveries. Maybe it needed more simple ones, more practical ones, more discoveries made by species desperate enough to focus on what helped everyone rather than what impressed everyone. Smiled and headed home. Tomorrow there would be more work to do, more ancient knowledge to adapt, more universal solutions to create. But tonight she could rest, knowing that humanity's accidental gift to the galaxy had taken root and flourished in ways no one could have predicted. The youngest species had taught the oldest ones the most important lesson, and the galaxy was better for it.